Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. First, I would like to apologize for not getting a video out last week. We've been pretty busy around the homestead here. We had the Feast of Trumpets, and then that last little bit of September into October we had the Day of Atonement, and then we also had a feast also that evening of Atonement where we all broke fast together. And then this last week, the 5th through the 11th, we had the Feast of Sukkot. So things have been really busy here around the homestead, but thank you for coming back, and I really hope you enjoy this week's video. I'm going to try and get a couple weeks worth of things in to this one video so you guys can kind of see what we've been up to. Hi, my name is Sonia. I'm a homeschooling, homesteading, spirit-filled, Torah-keeping mother of 10, and you are watching IHN Homestead. Colossians 3:17 states, "And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by him." So right now I am just doing a little bit of food prep. I am making, I think it's like an applesauce zucchini cake is what I was doing. I was making a couple batches of it. I have been slowly trying to retrain my mind. I used to have a lot of things in order, especially when I didn't have as many children as I have now. But I felt like my house was more in order and things ran more smoothly. But over the last few years, having more children and then moving into a new home, things just kind of turned chaotic because I realized that the routine I had in my old home wasn't working in the new home. And no matter how hard I tried for the first year or two, it just wasn't working. And I realized, okay, I need a new routine. But then when you're having babies and you're homeschooling and you're homesteading and you're doing all these other things, having the time to sit down and really just pour your brain out on a piece of paper, that doesn't really happen for me a lot. And by the time I get the kids to bed at night and I'm in bed myself, just trying to sit and relax, I am too tired to want to try to write or do anything in that aspect. And so I am just slowly trying, like I said, to retrain my mind and work in more schedules and routines for my house that will actually work for my household. I know that children in general benefit with schedules and routines. And right now, the main schedule that we have is it's not based on time or anything like that. We just know that in the mornings we get up, we have our breakfast, and then after breakfast we all pick up together. So then we can sit down and do school because now we're back into school season, and so we're doing that. Once we do school and lunchtime rolls around, okay, now it's time to make lunch, and then we clean up from lunch, and then we go from there. So if the kids have chores in the afternoon that their father wanted them to get done on the farm, then we take care of that, or if there's something in the house that we have to take care of. But I don't have right now a really set time to incorporate, oh, let's get some prep work done with the food, or I need to try and get up around this time so I can food prep for the day. Right now, I'm just doing, oh, it's lunchtime, let's get something put together for lunch, or, oh, I have an hour or two before dinner, I really need to get dinner figured out. And so meal planning is something that I know I would really benefit from. But there are some weeks that I just don't get to the grocery store, whether a job that my husband's doing was taking a little bit longer, so we had to wait, till the following week to get that extra paycheck in, which is fine. But then I'm kind of scrambling around sometimes trying to figure out, oh, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Breakfast it is, which my children love that. Eggs, pancakes, whatever for breakfast. Or for dinner. They think that's great. However, I would love to have more of a routine where I know what time I'm getting up in the morning. And during that free time, I know I can sit and read the word and sit with the Lord in just the quietness of my home. And then I can open up my meal planning book and say, okay, this is what I have planned for the day. And I'm going to get all that stuff around and prepped and ready so that all I got to do is either pop it in the oven or push a button on my Instant Pot or put it in, a slow cooker, whatever it is. So I have dinner already prepped, lunch already prepped, or lunch already going. So it's done by, the time that we're done with school and we're sitting down for lunch. But like I said, just trying to retrain my brain to get out of the nonstop on the go kind of feeling and come back around to how things used to be has proven itself to be more difficult than not. And as I'm making this food, I know I was thinking about these things because I ran out of sugar. I ran out of vanilla. I didn't have enough oil. Luckily, however, I had applesauce, and I know that applesauce can be a substitute for oil, and I needed applesauce for this recipe anyways. But I look at these things and I'm going, okay, this is making things more difficult for me. I have to get a system down for my home, and it's not just to benefit me, but I know my children would really appreciate it too. My children are great. My kids do some of the craziest things, and I love it. But I really also enjoy when we have our quiet moments together, before bed, where I can sit and read to them, get everybody ready for bed. We try to do it around the same time, around 8 o'clock every night. We send the kids upstairs or to their rooms, like, okay, I'm going to get our jammies on. We're going to get our teeth brushed. We're going to get in bed and have quiet time. But sometimes it just doesn't work. And so something that my husband has been speaking a lot to me is when you wake up in the morning, you need to tell yourself you are going to take control of your day and not let your day control you, because that's really how it's been. I've literally just been at the whim of whatever happens that day, and I know that it's not the right mindset to have. And so if anybody has any tips or anything, from a large family perspective, I've seen many women who just have 2 or 3 children, which is great, and they have awesome advice. And what I'll do is I will take from what I can based on what they're saying, the things in which I can apply to my household. But when you have a larger family, not everything that I was able to do when I only had a couple children can I do now with more children. But you always take what you can. You always sit and you listen to the wisdom of others, and you take what you can and apply what you can to your current situation. And it just helps you grow in mind and in spirit. But anyways, so if you guys have any things that could help benefit me, I am all ears. But so yeah, anyways, so I'm going to get all this put together, and we're going to pop this in the oven. I'm going to bake these up. And I like having things like this just to have ready for our breakfast or something in the morning that I can put a protein with. Usually it's scrambled eggs or fried eggs. My kids here lately have been getting really burnt out of scrambled eggs because I do scrambled eggs all the time. But I like doing my scrambled eggs with a lot of veggies. So I'll stir fry some onions, maybe some zucchini or whatever squash I might have. And then I also will add peppers sometimes, or I'll dice up some potatoes really small, and I'll do a big stir fry of veggies first and then dump the eggs on. And if we have cheese, we'll add cheese to them. But if I just do plain eggs, the kids usually aren't too thrilled with that. So I got to get a little bit more creative with my breakfasts in the morning. And that's why I like doing these things for my children. The book of Titus, if you turn to Titus chapter 2 and you begin at verse 3, this is what it states. It says, "The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed." I remember when I was younger, and I think I had maybe 4 or 5 kids, I was talking to my sister-in-law, and I was telling her how it's really kind of crazy because I don't have that older woman. I don't have somebody at that time that could direct me, that could encourage me, that had gone through the things that we were going through at that time. My husband and I have never really made a lot of money. We've always been probably pretty close to that line, if you want to call it that line. I don't want to say poverty. I don't think we were at one point in time, but these last few years, we're coming up and out. But to have the size of family that I had, to go through the circumstances and the different situations that we were going through, I knew nobody that could really be able to encourage me, that could really be able to direct me, that could sit with me and go through the Word of God with me and just love on me. And and have that kind of understanding because they had been there, or they had gone through something similar or the same that we had been going through at that time. And like I said earlier, I'm very open to hear the wisdom of other people because I know I can pull from things that they say and apply it as, to my current situation. But I never had that older woman that I could just call up and say, "Hey, could you pray with me?" Or, "Hey, this is what I'm going through. Do you have any words of wisdom for me?" I never had that. But I'll tell you guys something, and it was before Norman was born. So it was over a year ago. Norman is about 15 months old now. And I remember we were at a church service. We went all the way up to Saginaw, Michigan. We have friends that has a church up there. And I went up to the altar, or to the front there, and I just raised my hands during the worship service. And I just prayed to myself, to the Father, because I wanted to be a better mom. I wanted to be a better wife. I wanted to be a better keeper of my home because I could see that things just weren't running properly and I wanted something different. And as I was praying, there was a woman, her name, they call her Prophetess Mary. She was walking around and she was praying over people, and she had come up to me and she began praying over me. And the words that came out of her mouth brought me to tears pretty much instantly, because everything she prayed over me about was everything that I had just gotten done praying to the Father in my heart. Like, nobody heard me. I was praying to myself, and it spoke volumes to me, because the Lord literally proved himself to me that he was listening and that he could hear me and that he was right there with me. And she spoke over me and she said, the Lord showed her that I was going to be that woman that was going to help younger women. I'm teaching them how to love their husbands, teaching them how to love their children, teaching them, how to manage their homes. You guys, that just meant so much to me, knowing that the Lord heard me. So that was my little introduction. Sorry about that. But sometimes I like to pour out my heart on here so you guys can kind of know, what we're going through, what we're dealing with, because this is life. This is real. But anyways, so I told you guys we were doing Atonement and Sukkot, and so the kids kind of wanted to get a head start, so they set up the fire in the front yard, and we got all the chairs out and around there, and we have spent many nights over the last couple weeks outside around the fire. The kids just really enjoy being outside and eating dinner around the fire. They wanted to be outside in nature. It's just something that they look forward to every single year, and they don't want to wait until Sukkot actually comes. They want to do it now. So my husband and I were like, okay, yeah, as long as it's nice outside, we will go ahead and we will start having dinners around the fire. And the children have really been enjoying that family time and the fun that we've had together. And here's little Norman man. He discovered watermelon, and it has become, I think, his absolute favorite. He loves that stuff. But we did have something really interesting happen. I think it was the day prior to Atonement. My son, Peter, came running in the house, and he said, Mom, you got to come out to the duck pen. You got to see what we found. And there's Jacob. There was an owl stuck in the corner of the duck pen in a pile of mud. It looked like him and one of our ducks kind of got into it. We had a lot of ducklings and little chicks that had been getting picked off here lately, and we finally realized the culprit. It was this owl. The owl had flown in to the duck pen. We had a couple little ducklings left, and it looked like one of our Muscovy ducks, and the owl might have gotten into it just because of what we saw with the ducks and such. But Patrick was finally able to get it to a good place where he could get some gloves on and get this thing picked up. You can't really see it in the video, but this owl here was absolutely covered in mud and could not fly. It needed to be cleaned up, and I did some research, and I know you weren't supposed to use soaps or anything like that, so we just took one of our little kiddie pools that we had. We got some of the mud, cleaned off his wings. Then, because it was super cold this morning and you could tell this guy was cold, we put a little pen together for him. We put a nice bit of straw in there, and then we put him under a heat lamp, and we put we put towels over to keep the light out. It kept him nice and calm. He did a really good job. We just checked on him every once in a while, and I noticed he stayed in the spot legitly, like right under the heat lamp. So he was very appreciative of that heat lamp. We went ahead and just kept him for the day in there and waited for my husband to get home, because I wanted him to be home to kind of help us and to see if he felt like we needed to call somebody for help or not. And he thought everything was fine. And so that this evening we decided to go ahead. We walked up to the side hill, up to the field up there. I know you guys have seen me videotape up there a couple times. It's just really pretty out there. And we all went out together. The kids wanted to come and join us. And we went ahead and set them down up there. My son Patrick got some gloves on so that he could handle him more safely, because those talons and that beak are pretty sharp. And once he got him out, we went ahead and let him go, and then we noticed that he was not flying very well. You could tell he was either still very exhausted or he was still hurt from the fight he got into with the ducks. And he couldn't get that lift. He couldn't get that lift to pick himself up and to really go. And so when we went to walk up to him, he just watched, really. He watched my son almost like, are you going to come get me? Because he couldn't keep moving. He couldn't keep going. And he did. He let my son eventually just pretty much almost walk right up to him. My husband did kind of go around the other side, but he stood there and watched my son and kind of waited for my son. And my son walked up to him and just picked him back up, and he let him. He just picked him back up, and he put his hands around his wings, to kind of cup him in so he wouldn't hurt himself any more than what he already was. And we were able to get him back in his little cage there with the straw. We were able to put him back underneath the heat lamp, which he greatly appreciated. He really loved that heat lamp. And we gave him another night. And then the following morning, we did the same thing. We went up to the field. Well, not up to the field. We went to the end of our driveway, and my husband held him up, and he took off. He flew over the field, across the road, into the other yard, and he landed right at the creek's edge, and he just looked at us almost like a thank you, because that's what he needed. And then he was fine. And these nights that we're out here around the fire, here we are another night around the fire, we can hear him. And it's just really good knowing that he's okay. And that day that he took off, I believe, was the Day of Atonement, because, or it was the Eve of Atonement, because then this night here, we had a group of people over for fellowship and Bible study, and we all broke our fast together, and we had an awesome dinner. All the food was out underneath the canopy. We had the fire going. The kids ran around all night long. The adults got to sit and talk, and everybody had a great time with the Lord and a great time with each other. But now here we are. This is Friday, October 3rd, and we just had that great evening with family and friends honoring the Day of Atonement and then breaking our fast together. But now here we are. We got to prep for Shabbat. And so it was, like I said, it was non-stop. And I've got Miss Mary helping me out in the kitchen. I'm doing my own work and also trying to direct the kids all at the same time, because the little ones were helping me with a little bit of cleaning around the house. Peter and Adam were putting dishes away, and then I was getting them to work on other things while I was starting a soup. And Mary's here doing her thing, and now I had Peter helping me as well. He decided he wanted to cut up some watermelon to have for breakfast for Shabbat morning, and the watermelon was bad on the inside. We didn't get to it soon enough after we had gotten it, and it was just too soft and too mushy on the inside. But the chickens really enjoyed it, and that's who ended up with it. And so we're trying to get all of our work done here. Mary just finished up her dinner rolls, and she's getting those all rolled up. What she likes to do, because sometimes she's a little impatient, she doesn't like waiting for them to rise. So she'll open up the oven, and she'll have the oven going, and she'll put all her dinner rolls on the oven door so they get that direct heat from the oven. And that's what she's doing here. She's finishing up rolling up her balls and getting everything over onto the cookie sheets. And I really like it when she works with me in the kitchen, because then when we're sitting down for dinner together and she gets to see the work of her hands, and when the other ones are helping me and they get to see the work of their hands, and that everybody is feasting and enjoying the food together, it just kind of, it boosts their morale. It boosts their spirits, because they know that they played a part in everything that the family is sitting down and eating together. And so this was her doing her thing while I was preparing a soup. And the soup that I was preparing was a squash soup, aka baby food, according to my children. Every time I make squash soup, Mom, you're making baby food again? Yes, children, I am making baby food again. But in my squash soups, what I like to do is I like to start with about a stick of butter in my big stock pot. And what you didn't get to see me do, because you were watching Mary, is I was dicing up a whole bunch of onions, and I also chopped up some potatoes, and I also did some of your and some squashes. This squash here is one of my trombone squashes, and I was going to go ahead and add that along with the summer squash that I already had in there. And I found that my children, they do not like me preparing squash sweetly. So me growing up, for example, we would take an acorn squash and we'd cut it in half. We'd take the seeds out, and then we would put it open side up, and we'd fill it with butter and brown sugar and cinnamon, and we'd bake it in the oven like that. And we would have that kind of like a dessert. And I thought it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. My children do not like sweet squash, other than pumpkin pie or a pumpkin dessert of some sort. Other than that, they do not like it. And so, but they do like it when I make it with curry. So what I do is I will add salt, curry, red pepper flakes, some cumin, garlic, and onion, and they will eat the squash soup, or again, the baby food, if I prepare it that way, and they really enjoy it that way. Oh, I also add some milk for creaminess. So once everything cooks down, because I'll fill it up with a broth, whether it's vegetable broth or a homemade chicken broth that we have, I'll fill that up, and I will just let that cook out. So after I've sauteed, the onions and some of that lovely stuff, I get the squash in there, I fill it up with the broth, and I let that cook for a few hours. And then at the end, I get my big old immersion blender out, and I immersion blend it all down as much as I can to get all the chunks out. That's why they call it baby food, because it looks like baby food in a jar from the store. And then I will turn that off, and then I will pour in some milk, give it a little bit of that, that little bit creamier kind of consistency. And yeah, everybody really likes it when I do it that way. And we will have this pretty regularly throughout the winter, because I try to store my squashes, that I had from the garden or whatever I bought from the farmer's market. And so if I need something like a go-to, I can go and prepare a squash soup, and I know everybody will eat it, and that everybody will enjoy it. And here is another night out with the family, and some friends came over this evening and enjoyed dinner around the fire with us. This was Shabbat evening, and it was a beautiful day. As you can see, even little Norman's having a great time. He's having fun adjusting to being outside at night every day. He's really enjoyed it. And like I said, the kids really like it, and it's just a great time. The next day, though, it was really funny because I was in the house working and getting chores done, getting the house picked up, and I couldn't figure out where the other kids were. I knew they had gone outside to play, but I thought, oh, I'll go check on them. And here they are, splitting wood. They did not ask me. They did not tell me that they were doing this. I walk outside and I look, and here's Mary in her dress trying to split wood. And then once I pan over, you will also see Peter over there as well, splitting wood. And it just, oh my goodness, it cracked me up. And I asked the kids, like, what are you doing? And they're going, well, we need to make sure we have enough wood for Sukkot, because we were going to be starting Sukkot Monday evening, the 6th, and they wanted to make sure that we had enough wood for the fire. And I have to hand it to them, okay? Because if you notice, they stayed far enough apart from each other. They worked in the same direction, so they weren't swinging the axes at each other. And then they had Emily, and she wasn't going in between them. She was walking around, and they were doing such a great job. They were being super responsible, making sure that they were watching for Emily. And so all the wood that they were splitting, Emily would go and she would pick it up, and she'd either put it on the little dolly back there, or she would put it, I think they were using one of our old wagons, and they were loading up the dolly and they were loading up the wagon so that they could carry the wood out to the front yard. And they had it all stacked up in the front yard along the fence, right where we were going to be celebrating the feast of Sukkot. And so I did kind of tell the kids, I was like, I really appreciate that you guys were doing this, and I see that you guys were trying to be cautious and careful. However, I would have greatly appreciated knowing what was going on so that I would have been checking on them more periodically. I just thought they were outside playing the whole time. So we did have a little chat about it, but I gotta tell you guys, like, my kids are crazy. They see something that needs done, and a lot of times they will take it into their own hands. Like, oh, don't worry, Mom, we've got this. Yep, they do. And here they are, splitting wood. So cheers to a nice cold glass of water. Give them a nice drink to get rehydrated. And here is Emily's stack of wood that she did. And she was so proud of herself because she did it all by herself. She felt like such a big girl. And then while I was outside, I went and checked the laundry to see what could be taken in. Our dryer has been down for quite some time, probably, at least a month. But the weather has been nice, so we've just been hanging everything out on the line. And little Miss Rebecca, I like to call her my little peanut, she really loves helping me with the laundry. And she is quite insistent that she's going to help me, and she's very persistent in getting her way of helping me with the laundry. She kind of sees it, as a little game. She likes to jump up and grab the laundry and pull it down and fill up the baskets. And she always has a smile on her face. She always enjoys helping me. So why not? So I told her, like, hey, Rebecca, Mommy's going to do laundry. You want to come help me? And she comes running across the yard. And here she is. Such a sweetheart, helping Mommy with the laundry. And then it was kind of funny because once we got the laundry baskets filled up and I started walking everything back up to the house, she decided that she was also going to try and carry the laundry basket. And I didn't think she was going to get it, but she showed me. She's like, yes, Mom, this one right here. I am going to pick it up. And guess what? She did. She picked it up and she goes, see, Mom, I got it. All right, so I had a project that I decided last minute to do in my bedroom, and it was to get these mirrors down. I like mirrors. I like having mirrors in my home, but every time I walked into my bedroom, these mirrors were just too overstimulating in my room. Just that constant reflection I don't know what it was, but it was just too much on my brain. I needed something more calming, more soothing that I could have in my bedroom to make it feel more like a bedroom. So Peter and I and Mary and the littles, we decided to take these mirrors all down by hand. I didn't have any power tools, I didn't have anything to work with, just a Phillips head screwdriver, and that was all I needed. So Peter and I are measuring out these mirrors so I can figure out how much fabric I'm going to need. I had a bolt of fabric I was thinking about using because I was just wanting some plain Jane cotton or muslin curtains to hang up here. But my husband told me that if I take these curtains down, I had to have something to replace them with right away because he didn't want to see a bunch of open closet space. So Peter and I are going to take these down and we're going to get some curtains made and we're going to get this project done. Alrighty, well that was a lot of work. After I was done here, I went ahead and started sewing. My kids went outside. They wanted to start prepping the front yard for Sukkot. They wanted to be outside for a little bit. So I ended up getting 2 curtains done and sewn, and then I decided, you know what? We've been in the house. We've been doing all this work. I wanted to be outside with the kids, but just real quick, what I did was I did a small hem up the side of the raw edge of the fabric, and then I also did a small hem on the top before I folded it over and pressed it for the rod to make the loop for the rod. And like I said, I got about 2 of these done, and then I decided to go outside and join my children. We got the front yard cleaned up. We got the tent set up all by ourselves. I was kind of surprised we were able to do it because it was a big 3-bedroom tent. It was the first time we had this tent. We had just gotten it this year, and this thing was huge. But we did it, and we were very proud of ourselves. And when I got done, I went back into my sewing room and worked on the third curtain. I wanted to do 2 panels for each closet area. I thought that would look really nice. So I'm back in the house working on the third panel. However, I decided once I got this done, I still needed to get dinner around. I had the little ones I needed to take care of, and I had some more stuff around the house I needed to get cleaned up. So I didn't spend too much more time on this, but I got the third panel done, and I still had the fourth one left to go. Our first night out at Sukkot, I decided to make a chili. I had a lot of fresh produce from the garden that I needed to get used up. Yes, I was still getting tomatoes and everything from the garden at this point in time. So I was dicing up a bunch of tomatoes. I was dicing up some green peppers, some banana peppers, and a couple jalapenos as well. And we were going to cook our very first meal over the fire. And then we got a pan of hamburger and some onions going. And then we added our chili seasoning to that. Little Norman thought he would go ahead and try to blow the shofar for us. It was super cute. But this is what the tents looked like. We had the first room for my husband and I and Norman. And then the girls were in the second room. Mary and Rebecca and Emily were in there. And then the third room over there was cramped with all the boys. Jacob and Peter and Adam. And then Patrick decided he was going to sleep outside, and Michael was in Missouri at the time for Sukkot. He went down there with a family for Sukkot down there. And then here is that chili, and we're getting it all put together. It smelled delicious. Everybody was super excited. They all agree, they believe that food cooked over the fire tastes so much better. Mary even decided to try her hand at baking over the fire in the coals, and she is making, again, just a zucchini bread. We love eating zucchini bread around here, especially when we have all that zucchini. Everybody finds it to be a very good treat. So she was getting all of her stuff put together and decided that she was going to try it out to see what would work. Norman kept pulling the towel off. It was great, but we needed to keep the flies out of the food, so we needed to stop that. But she was putting it right there in the bed of coals, right next to the fire, and it actually did a really, really good job cooking up. I wish my camera could have done a better job. That moon on the first night of Sukkot was so beautiful. It was such a peaceful night. Everybody enjoyed their chili over the fire with the zucchini bread. I got little Norman here trying to blow the shofar again. He was having a good night, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful time. But guess what? Rebecca ended up burning herself on the fire. Poor little girl. She got burnt on the arm. But I have comfrey, and I see this stuff being done all the time online, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it out. When I got burnt really bad when I was pregnant with Norman, I was canning. I got burnt to the point where I had no pain afterwards because it went, it burnt through my nerves, and Rebecca kind of was the same way. It burnt her, but then she was fine. I could touch it and everything, and she didn't seem to cry or anything. So we got a comfrey leaf. We smashed it up, get some of the oils out. We wrapped it on her arm. She thought it was really neat. She liked putting the leaf on her arm. And we put some bandage over top of that and got her all doctored up. She didn't like that I put the pressure on it, but she was a little champ. And then what I decided to do was I decided to make some of that comfrey tallow that I told you guys weeks ago that I was going to do with all that comfrey that I had hanging up in my kitchen. And that's what I did. I decided to make that comfrey balm with the beef tallow that I had. So I measured out the amount of tallow that I needed, and I got that over the fire so it would slowly melt down. And then I took those dried comfrey leaves and I started mashing them up and putting them in my measuring cup so I could add that to the tallow. I put those comfrey leaves directly into the hot tallow into another jar because we were going to do a double boiler method with this. And so I needed that jar, and then I also had the kids, they were running for me and getting a pan of water set up with a towel in it, and that's what that looked like. And I had that over the fire, and I simmered this for over 12 hours. The next morning I decided to finish it in the house, and I am straining out the leaves now, and separating those comfrey leaves from the tallow. And then I am measuring out some beeswax into another jar. And then I'm also going to be measuring out some lavender essential oil as well. Lavender is very soothing to the skin and it just helps things to feel better and it smells really good. Now I'm going to add that tallow that is infused with all those comfrey leaves back into my mixture over here. And now I'm going to just heat that slowly and let that all come together and melt together. And this is what it looks like. I got these cute little jars. And I'm going to pour that into both of these jars. And I will now have this on hand whenever there's burns, skin irritations. There's so many different things that you can use this balm for. And I'm very excited to have this on my shelf for an option for my children. Some people will take school off during the week of Sukkot, but this year I decided not to. I decided that we could still do our work in the mornings because the mornings were colder, and I thought coming inside for a little bit, getting our schoolwork done, letting the day warm up because the days were beautiful. The days were in the 70s and it was beautiful, but the nights were kind of chilly. So I brought everybody in so we could do our schoolwork, and even little Miss Rebecca, she likes to sit and pretend that she is doing schoolwork as well, and I can't help but video her because she looks so cute. I call her my little peanut, but she's even doing her schoolwork and feeling like a big girl doing her schoolwork as well. Well, everyone, that is it for this week's video. I had a lot of other footage that I would have liked to have shown you, but it would have made this video it would have been too long. And the video was already long enough, I felt like. But I hope you guys enjoyed the content that you saw, what we've been doing over the last 2 weeks, and the fun and the learning and all the experiences that the family has together. I pray that you guys were blessed by what you saw, and I pray that the Lord has been blessing you as well. Remember, Colossians 3:17 states, "And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by him." If you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please do so if this content blesses you or if you're learning anything or just encouraged throughout your week. Also, hit that thumbs up and give us a like. My children get super excited about it. God bless you.